What's up everyone, it's your favorite Apex Pro player again. Today we're going to go over 10 tips that will make you go from a level 1 skeleton to a level 99 raid boss. Consider these tips more as concepts, and by that I mean they're things you need to start thinking about constantly as you're playing the game that will make a drastic difference. Before we begin, I do stream on Twitch and answer tons of questions, so feel free to stop by over at twitch.tv/Xera, or the link is in the description down below. And with that said, let's get right into it. Tip number 1, fighting with confidence. Part of being good at fighting is simply knowing how good you are and not being afraid to lose. It's a battle royale, so the point of the game is obviously to be the last person standing, but how are you ever going to beat the last team if you're avoiding every fight? Very rarely will you ever see a team win the game with 1 or 2 kills, primarily because the teams that win often are the ones that are confident enough to take fights throughout the entire game and get stocked up on loot to close it out. What I did to get more confident and less nervous in fights was literally just loading up into trios and running at every single fight I could find. It sounds stupid, but it's really the only way to just get comfortable with it. You'll lose some fights at the start, yeah, and it might get annoying constantly dying, but as long as you're reflecting on each loss and learning from each win, you'll make less mistakes, fight more confidently, and ultimately win more games. Tip number 2, get familiar with each map. A large part of fighting like Furia, aka the best team to grace the planet, totally unbiased by the way, is map knowledge. Map knowledge is knowing the ins and outs of a map, things like knowing which spots someone could be, knowing how to clear a building, and just knowing how to attack certain spots in order to win the fight as efficiently as possible so you can be prepared for the next quicker. The better you get at visualizing details on the map, the better you will get at where to place your crosshair as well. Crosshair placement is super important because it leads to you being able to hit the enemy as soon as you see them and not end up caught off guard. A lot of the buildings on maps are copied throughout the map anyway too, so you're not having to learn too many layouts. So just get more games in, start studying common buildings, and if you can't get too many games in, don't worry, you guys can always watch my stream and learn the maps through my gameplay. Tip number 3, anticipate how much damage you're going to take before you take it. Have you ever watched one of those sweaty TTV raids try to 1v3, get annihilated, then instantly rage quit? Yeah, that's because they're bad and don't think about how much damage they might take. Not me though. An important part of fighting is being able to minimize damage taken while maximizing damage done. It's pretty simple. The less time you're spending healing, the more time you can spend shooting back and doing damage on the enemy. As you learn the maps, you'll start to learn what angles enemies can take on you in a fight and start to learn how good those angles are or not. Your job with that info is to be able to quickly decide, am I going to get put in a blender if I peek this? And if the answer is yes, maybe don't swing that corner. If the answer is no, then bro, swing that corner and one clip someone. I believe in you. Just don't blame me if you die, okay? Tip number 4, don't challenge more than 1 enemy at a time. Sounds pretty obvious, but trust me bro, people keep messing this one up. This tip works in conjunction with the last one and is very simple. When you're peeking an angle and see 2 people staring at you, don't even try to do damage, just unpeek. Please. It's super simple, but so many people just end up dying doing this. Like me, right here. So please, 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 me and every one of your randoms in pubs begs of you to drop the ego. You're not going to 1v2, find another angle, please. Tip number 5, run weapons that make sense. If you're trying to fight 3v3s like a Giga Chad and show dominance, pick up high DPS weapons like the R301, Nemesis, R9, Car, Flatline, etc. You get the point. ARs and SMGs are just so good for consistent damage and are super flexible. You can run shotguns, but just remember that if you miss a single shot on a Peacekeeper, you're losing out on a lot of damage that an SMG would have done otherwise, so don't miss. If you're trying to fight a lot, please don't run snipers or LMGs. They're just way too niche, and you end up with pretty much 1 weapon in a fight unless you're an insane no-scope god with a sentinel, which I'm not, but I'm sure all of you are. So yeah, again, try to run ARs and SMGs. They're really good right now. Tip number 6, knowing how long a fight might take. The ideal fight should last around 30 seconds to a minute. I say this because you're always at risk of getting thirded by another team, so the longer the fight takes, the higher the chance that another team is on their way to ruin your game. As you learn each map and its layouts and you get some practice in, you'll get an idea of how hard a fight is to take and if it's worth just rotating around instead. If they have 3 snipers holed up in a building with rampart walls and you have to cross with little to no cover to even get on top of them, it's probably not worth fighting unless you have to. Remember, be confident, but pick your fights wisely. Tip number 7, recognize when the enemies make mistakes. Not everyone is perfect, except for people who subscribe to my YouTube channel, so enemies will make mistakes. It's up to you to recognize when and how you can capitalize on it. Now, this tip is only going to come with practice, but I actually have an amazing example to go over of one of my favorite teams ever, TSM. Just kidding, it's us at LAN winning a game we should have never won. To give some context, this is us, Furia, versus Team Liquid, who is now Xset. So these aren't just some random noobs in a pub game, these are pros. You'll see it's only us versus them to win the game, but the zone is pulling to their side and we're about to lose our only piece of cover, which is the fence line. They have way more angles on us than we do on them, but what happens is they actually give up some of their space and we instantly take advantage and start moving up, and now the game is a lot more winnable. I'll turn the volume on here so you guys can listen to the comms and just kind of see some of the gameplay for yourself.
I'm gonna queue right. Okay, get ready to run. They all went left. They all went left.
Yeah, I hit the Gibby.
Swing right. Take this head glitch from them. Take this head glitch from them. Take this head. Right here, right here. We're gonna farm this Gibby.
They give you up there. I almost cracked.
On that side, you on that side. It's fine, I'm batting. Xera, you're safe on us. Watch these barrels.
Ult him,
I don't see
5%.
them. Oh, they're just throwing barrels. They're on this. I'm gonna fly up and get an angle. Ready?
Give me. 60 cracks.
I'm
Swing left.
I have to bat.
I'm gonna kill him out.
I'm gonna queue over for you. I'm queuing.
Give me. I need a bat. I don't have a bat.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm almost stopping. Go give us.
Wait for the bub.
Yeah.
You're solo.
I'm crack Caustic.
Back
I was
in.
cracking. We got kill Caustic.
Climbing up, Panders.
I'm dead.
Give me your shield.
Nice try. Give me low. On you. You got this. You got it, bro. You got this.
It's just you.
You got it. You win it.
And because of us taking advantage of that small window of opportunity, we win the game and woo, the crowd goes wild. Tip number 8. Understanding your abilities versus the enemy's abilities. Like any game with multiple characters with different abilities, there's counters and ways to play around each one. For example, in this clip right here, I have a digital threat which lets me see through my own Bangalore smoke, so I'm confident I can peek this team and they can barely hit me back. The smoke also adds a form of soft cover for my teammate and I from other teams trying to poke at us. Knowing how to maximize your abilities is one of the best ways to win fights consistently. It's also super important to recognize what abilities the enemies actually have ready to use and what abilities your team has ready to use. In a matchup like Seer versus Seer, it's incredibly valuable to know whether or not the enemy Seer has his ultimate up, because if you do, then you have a huge advantage. So make sure to treat abilities as a resource and win through better ability usage. If you want me to go more in depth into certain characters, leave a comment down below letting me know which character you're interested in and I'll consider it. Tip number 9, actually using grenades. This is a simple one that not enough people are doing. Grenades can quickly change the pace of a fight and even straight up end the fight if used properly. You can only hold 1 grenade per inventory slot unless you're fused, but you only need enough ammo and meds for 1 fight, because if you win the fight, you'll take their loot and then rinse and repeat. In case you don't know what the 3 grenades do, here's a quick rundown. Arc stars slow movement and sensitivity when they hit someone and can also stick onto enemies. Frag grenades do the most damage and can roll and even be timed properly to explode almost on impact by throwing them vertically. Thermites place a line of fire horizontal to the thrower that ticks for 4 damage until you get out of it and continues to hit you for a couple of ticks, even once getting out of it. So they each have their uses and are definitely worth picking up. So if you have 400 light ammo for an R99 and walk past a grenade, especially an arc star or thermite, please pick it up unless you really need 400 light ammo in that first fight to win, in which case I refer you to my last and final tip of the video. Tip number 10, aim training. If you're using 400 ammo in a fight, either that's the most intense fight ever and you're both John Wick, or you both really need to consider aim training. It's pretty simple. The better your aim is, the more damage you do, the less ammo you waste, the shorter the fight takes, the less meds you waste, and the less chance you get third-partied. Aim training is a whole separate video I could make, but to simplify it for this video, if you want to practice your aim, consider playing the mixtape mode, fail this downtime looting, practice recoil on the firing range, and really just play the game more. But don't just play mindlessly, make sure you're playing with the goal of improving. It makes a huge difference, I promise. Well, that's it for this video. If any of these tips turned you into Imperial Hal, consider hitting the like button, it helps me out a ton, and subscribe to the channel for more helpful tips from an Apex Pro player like me. That's it from me, have a good one, thank you guys for watching.